Again, good evening, everybody. It's 6:30. Welcome to the Columbus Common Council meeting, and welcome to those that are streaming live at home. Take a roll call, please.
Finkler?
Here.
Hammer?
Oh, here. Sorry.
Gray?
Present.
Motive?
Present.
Reed?
Here.
Rolke?
Here.
Steiner?
Here.
All present.
Okay. And if you would please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And City Clerk Gable, has the meeting been properly noticed? It has. We need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Alder Motif will make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Alder Rolke will second.
So I have a motion by Alder Motif to approve the agenda, second by Alder Rolke. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Agenda approved. Correspondence and communications. We have several people signed up. First would be Ann Ehlenfeld. So if you could state up at the mic there, name and your address, please.
Since I saw that number 6 was on the committee of the whole, I decided to come back. My name is Ann Ehlenfeld. I'm a constituent from the 4th Ward. I live at 160 Inglesby Street here in Columbus. A month ago, I came and I gave a brief history, very brief history, of the dingy farmstead. A little reminder, that house is 162 years old. That's old, one of the older ones here. And it can be repaired, it can be restored and updated. The barns are in a little bit more trouble, but they can also be repaired and restored. The farm has a history of being a stock farm, raising cattle and then horses, and the horses were harness horses. I think there was a farm in Fall River that had harness racing, and this farm in Columbus, and there were no other farms. This farm had its own racetrack, as a matter of fact, on the farm. I feel confident that Columbus would be well justified in selling the property to Brian Nagel and David Stira, who have already submitted a legal offer to purchase. They have desires, hopes, and plans to improve the farmstead for both themselves and for the city of Columbus. Presently, Columbus does not have much to entice people to visit except for the many antique stores that we have, and that's a plus for us. But I think we need more. With the sale of the property to these prospective buyers, what they would like to do would be to give Columbus a beautiful welcoming message as people come off the exit ramp from Madison. Then that's a busy ramp. And this is a time that we need people coming into Columbus and feeling very welcome. I'm asking that you as a council, please give them an opportunity to improve and beautify our city. And when the time comes, please vote to sell the property to Brian Nagel and David Stira. I believe they are the right choice for Columbus, and they're the right choice for improving Columbus. Thank you.
And then we have John Salzwedel. And state your name and address, please.
You bet. Hi, John Salzwedel, 841 Park Avenue. I'm up here, I'm going to echo the same sentiment from Ann Ehlenfeld. I think that the council should honor the proposal from Brian and David and sell that property to those guys. I know a little something about buying a property that might be a little less than perfect. About 16 years ago, my wife Carla and I had the privilege of buying 841 Park Avenue from the Hermanson family, and they befell a tragedy with a roofer that they had come out, and they tore the roof off the house. Water infiltrated. The insulation was ruined. The plaster got wet, and out of concerns for mold and all that, they started the process of rebuilding that house. I think it ended up being too much than they could really take on at the time, and they reluctantly sold the house. I remember, in fact, when we bought the house from Ruth and Tom, Ruth was shaking because that was her grandmother's house. When we bought that house, I heard from a lot of people that we were crazy to buy it and we should have just bulldozed that property. This is the house right next to the True Value, if anybody's wondering. My wife and I, through a lot of hard work, sweat equity, leveraging pretty much everything that we had, were able to put that house back together and do right by it. So much so that it became nominated and granted state and national register status. It's a national and state landmark now because we gave a damn about it. And I'm asking the council to consider that opportunity for the unique Dingy property and the position that's being presented to you right now. I think to have that erased from Columbus would undermine the historic fabric that we have. It's a nice welcome as it is. And if you just squint your eyes a little bit when you're driving past it, have a little optimism, you can see, I think, what David and Brian are seeing and what Carla and I saw in the Hermanson home. And I appreciate your consideration in that matter. Thank you.
Next, we have Dominic. If you'd state your name and address, please.
Surprised you didn't try my last name.
Familaro.
Not bad. Dominic Familaro, 324 West Mill. Want to talk about two things, but for just the council portion here, I'm just going to talk about one topic. I'd like to address what you're going to be voting on shortly with Council President. It's your own housekeeping. It's your own choices. You don't have to listen to us on this really at all. It's your own feelings. But I'd like to touch on that one of the responsibilities is setting agendas while working collaboratively with council members. This is outlined in our Wisconsin state statutes as well as, I believe, our city ordinances. It states that all council members have equal say in arranging an agenda. And most importantly, that the statute further states that no single person is permitted to control the agenda or the meetings, and that this is critical to ensuring that all council members' voices are heard, all business is conducted transparently, and no individual can manipulate the decision-making process, that those who are elected to present and be the voice of the people can do so. Unfortunately, this hasn't been the case several times in the last few years. One person has been tasked with this duty and has stepped out of bounds and done exactly what is not allowed several times. They have controlled and dictated meetings under the claim of transparency and efficiency, which is false. Efficiency that has truncated discussions and meetings to the point where he is proud of the fact that you're not here till 11 o'clock when sometimes you probably have to be. Your job is to sit here and work out things as a council until there is a good path forward. And I don't think that's been done many times. And I think I've heard in the last meeting, several of you have voiced that same concern. And I was proud and applaud all of you for speaking, whether you were for or against somebody. I was glad to hear that you guys had the discussion, and it took forever. I think it went like 9 rounds or 8 rounds. Crazy, but partly because we were led to believe that a council member wasn't allowed to vote. And even when the council was tasked with the job of putting forth that vote, they were denied it. They were denied it by the currently former council president, by our city attorney, and by body language from our city administrator who agreed with that decision. We found out that that's not the case because our mayor is a member of council, whether you want to accept it or not. That's how it's written, ordinance and statute-wise in the state. The city voted for change with a new mayor, a new alder, and re-electing some other people. Some of you said that you felt that change went far enough. The community didn't feel that way. And you're not going to ask the community if we feel the change went far enough. But some of the alders said it needs to go further. And some of the alders spoke and said they too felt silenced, that they too feel the community is not properly represented or even allowed to speak. Now, many of you have poo-pooed that idea, and some of you still support that idea. And I hope when you guys make your vote today, you keep that in mind and vote with the right direction for change. Thank you.
Bruce? And again, state your name and address, please.
Bruce Hatzinger, address 135 East Harrison Street in Columbus. I think I'm starting to feel like a leper here tonight, but just a couple of comments. I'm not here to debate the purchase of the Dingy property. That's over, that's done with. I also want to clarify, I'm not anti-business, but if we love Columbus history so much, why is the blighted Sampson Pharmacy building still blighting the downtown? It's my opinion that the best use of the Dingy property, in spite of the historical significance, and believe me, I respect the history of Columbus. I like history. I like the history of Columbus, but my opinion, the best use of the Dingy property must be to the greatest benefit to the taxpayers. So I'm asking the council to develop it for as many lots as possible for residential use with a reputable developer with proven track record. Thank you.
And Jeff?
Jeff Bennon, 746 South Main Street in Columbus. First of all, before I start, I'm going to talk about the fire department location. Unfortunately, the chief came in and sat down next to me. I was not part of the thing, so he's kind of surprised I'm here. So first of all, touch on that. I was on the fire department for 37 years, and I'm just concerned the thought process that would come into thinking that it was a great idea to put it on Tower Drive. There's a lot of issues that you don't think about. One is firemen. These are volunteers. The adrenaline flows when you get the call. You're now asking these guys to go down Fuller Street School, a very active portion of town. There's activities 9 months a year going on in that school. Fires don't happen between 9:30 and 11:30 when the buses aren't traveling and the kids aren't crossing streets. And that's going to be a main thoroughfare for firemen to get to that station. On top of that, you're next to a nursing home. Great for them. And in a residential area. You had a great spot on James Street. And again, the council over years does these things, but no set plans, so they can always turn around and move someplace else and nothing ever gets done. So please look and go back to something on James Street. Besides that, look at all the workers and jobs that are affected if that fire station isn't in a strategic spot to take advantage of helping those industries stay in business and being quick on response time. The other thing I want to talk about is the piece that you're going to vote on tonight. One of my thoughts is thinking about the election. We had an outsider running for mayor. We also had a council president. One of the arguments that was made here the other night was, I want to be back at council president to continue the direction we're going. If you look at the election results, that's not what the community said. If they really thought you were doing the right job and going in the right direction, you'd be sitting in that chair and not where you are today. So I think there's some council members that are saying, we see what's going on. Yeah, we need some change. We need to look at it in a different direction. Like Councilman Gray to eat a little humble pie and say, yeah, maybe it's time for me to back off a little bit and be part of the council and not try to run it. Thank you.
And then Mark.
Good evening again. Mark Rohde, 743 West School Street, Columbus. Believe it or not, I'm not here to talk about the dingy property. I think you probably all recall where I stand on that. I'm here to talk to you about the Ford garage and the parcels that are up for discussion for sale tonight. I urge you to give a little more consideration to not selling those parcels and consider that as a location for the fire department. A couple of weeks ago, Alder Gray had mentioned the value of maybe some consistency, I like to think of overlapping terms in office. So there's some institutional memory. I think there's some validity to that. So let me pose a question to all of you. Where were you all in 2005 when we last had this discussion about a fire station? I was here in town. A lot of the folks out here that I know, I see them nodding, they were here in town. I don't know, maybe it was Missouri or Colorado or Waunakee or Milwaukee, but I think for a lot of you, it wasn't here. So as a whole, I think the council is missing out on some of that institutional memory that we have when we look at the public safety building. So in 2005, we had two council members who kind of had tunnel vision, who told us that we need a public safety building. We have to house the police and the fires together. It has to be towards Fall River, out on that edge of town. It has to be a brand new building, and it has to cost between $8 and $12 million. And if we don't, we're going to be overrun with drugs and gangs and violence, and the town will burn down. Well, clearly that didn't happen. Just last meeting, Chief Weiner here got commended for the good job that he and his force do in the facility that we, at that point, decided to renovate for them. So that is working. What do we do as a citizen? We formed an ad hoc committee. Now, the committee was stacked with those two council members, but there were a bunch of us citizens as well. And as a committee, we met with other police and fire departments. We met with engineers. We toured facilities. We talked with chiefs. And we came up with a solution that wasn't to spend $8 to $12 million on the edge of town out there. And, you know, I mean, thankfully so. How would you all feel? You think we're in a bad financial position now? What if you were staring down both barrels of $12 million of municipal debt that was going to, municipal bonds that were coming due in the next few years? Ouch. I think we can all be thankful that we didn't spend that money back then. So from the committee, I know 2 or 3 of them have passed away. One is retired out of politics. So I'm your institutional memory here from the ad hoc committee, from this conversation that we had years ago. Like it or not, I've got some knowledge for you. And if you don't want my knowledge, I strongly urge you to go back to the council meeting notes from 2005 and 6 and the ad hoc committee notes from 2005 and 6. They should be on file for you. But we've decided that building a big, brand new, fancy, expensive fire station out on the edge of town wasn't right for us at that time. Our population didn't justify it. And we came up with another solution for the police department, and we deferred on the fire department. So now we have the opportunity to build a new fire department. I'll echo the previous gentleman's comments that we shouldn't have tunnel vision and place it on Tower Drive just because that's our legacy. We should consider all of our options. I've had a little correspondence with the chief. He's invited me in to see the current facility, and I haven't had an opportunity to do that yet. They looked pretty busy this afternoon when I drove by, and I didn't think I should stop and interrupt. But I have had the opportunity to talk with chiefs of 5 or 6 other local municipalities in neighboring counties just in the last week or two. And I asked them, an independent, outside professional opinion, what's most important in locating your fire department. And the number one thing they said was response time. And the number 2 thing they said was the time it takes for your firefighters to get to the location. So those being the most important issues, I don't have the right, the legal authority, and the lights and the siren to have official response times and test it out from the 3 different sites under consideration. But I drove from the current location down to, and we used the Maripac as the area where we thought would be the hot zone or the likely zone of a major fire. From the current location down there, down to the fire hydrants in front of a Maripac, 0.7 miles, it took me 74 seconds driving legal speed limit in town.
Okay. Mark, you got about a half a minute.
Okay. Tower Drive took 3.5 minutes to get from Tower Drive to a Maripac. Ford Garage to a Maripac, 14 seconds. Okay? So why is that time important? It affects your ISO rating, the rating that the fire department has. And in many, many municipalities around here, when fire departments are near the business parks, the ISO rating is improved, the insurance for the businesses is decreased, and you'd have to build a few bridges here, you'd have to do a little legwork, but oftentimes when those insurance rates are decreased, local businesses give back to the department financially to help support the fire station. So before we just often sell off the lots at Countryside Ford, I urge you to reconsider fiscally and from a safety standpoint why that's a better opportunity. Coincidentally, when I did talk to the chief, he told me, I got 9 vehicles to get in and out of that building over there in the event of an emergency. I took a lap around Countryside Ford. You know how many bay doors they have? 9. It aligns very well with the equipment that we have and the needs that we have. So please reconsider and not selling the Countryside property, and consider that as a viable opportunity for a fire department. Thank you.
Okay, moving forward, we have our consent agenda in front of us, and I'm looking to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Alder Rolke moves to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Alder Motif will second.
Okay, I have a motion by Alder Rolke to accept, a second by Alder Motif. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carry. Next on the agenda is new business, is City Council President election. So I will open nominations for Council President.
I nominate Alder Rolke.
I'll nominate Alder Motif.
Are there any further nominations? Any further nominations? Okay. We have 2 candidates. So please vote.
Motive. 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 Rolke. Rolke. Rolke.
So question being is, how many times do we want to go through this?
That's the question.
And that's the question. And this is up to council. How many times do you wish to go through this?
We went through this 8 times last time, and clearly the vote is the same. So I think the once is enough,
Once
in
is
my
enough.
opinion.
I agree.
With checking with the League of Municipality, the mayor does have the authority to break that vote. This is not really what I would prefer to do, but in order to get business moving, this is what I feel that I need to do. And I hereby break that vote by casting my vote for Alder Roki. Okay, item number 2 is to consider and take action to approve the rental agreement with the Columbus 4th of July Organization Incorporated and to authorize Amy Jo Myers to execute the agreement on behalf of the city. So looking for a motion to approve.
Alder Finkler, a motion to approve?
Alder Roki will second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alder Finkler to approve and a second by Alder Roki to have Amy Jo represent the city in signing of the 4th of July agreement. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next is the request or to take action on the CBO and the CSA sponsor banners for them to be able to raise funds for lighting at Meister Park. So can I have a motion to approve the banners, sponsor banners?
Alder Roki moves to approve the sponsorship banners for CBO and CSA sponsorship.
Reed will second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alder Roki and a second by Alder Reed to accept the sponsor banners for CBO and CSA. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries. And next, we have on the agenda to consider and take action on the CHLPC Summer Concert Series. And this is a concert series for fundraising for the ADA Rest Haven Restoration Project. So may I entertain a motion for approval of the Summer Concert Series?
Reed motions to approve the 2023 CHLPC Summer Concert Series.
Alder Gray seconds.
We have a motion by Alder Reed to accept the 2023 CHLPC Summer Concert Series with a second by Alder Gray. Any discussion, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on to the Municipal Services Director position and for approval of the position description and salary range. So can we entertain a motion for approval on the Municipal Services Director position?
Alder Motive will make a motion to approve the Municipal Services Director position description and salary range.
Alder Steiner can second.
Okay, have a motion by Alder Motive and a second by Alder Steiner to approve the position description and salary range for the Municipal Services Director position. Any further discussion on this? Okay, this isn't a roll call, is it necessarily? Okay. All right. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next is the consider and take action on the city loan manual, and this is approving the city loan manual as presented.
I'm sorry.
As presented, I'm sorry about that. So.
Alder Motive will make a motion to approve the city loan manual.
Alder Gray will second.
Okay, Alder Motiff move to accept the approved the loan manual. Alder Gray seconded. Is there any further discussion on this?
Reed has a question.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. No, I was just a little confused. So on the agenda item, it says the only change is establishing the range of 50,000 to 500,000 for businesses. But we do still have the microloans available, the 10,000 to 50,000?
Yes, the microloan and the facade loan program, and then the business loan is for the larger loans.
Okay.
Which at this time, they wouldn't have the fund balance for it unless
Yeah.
the council allocated money to fund that.
Thank you. I was just a little confused, wanted to make sure it was still there. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up is Resolution 423, authorizing signatures to sell the countryside parcels.
Alder Gray moves to approve Resolution 423 for the authorization of signatures to sell the countryside parcels. Alder Steiner can second.
Okay, Alder Gray has moved to approve Resolution number 423, authorizing signatures to sell countryside parcels. Alder Steiner has seconded. Any discussion on this action?
I just have a quick clarification point on this. Is this purely just for authorizing signatures, or is this any other discussion?
So, I guess the legal effect of this, there was an offer to purchase that was signed by both parties. So we're under contract to sell these parcels. The legal effect of this resolution authorizes the mayor and clerk, I believe, to sign the documents necessary to close. So the discussion really should be around the resolution. I think it's fair to have a conversation around the impact of, if we don't sign the resolution, what that means. And our attorney's right there, and his microphone's already on.
Only if you need further clarification. The main point of this the main point of the resolution is for the title company to have a guarantee that the mayor and the clerk have the authority of the council to go through with the deal. That's really the sole reason of the resolution. And as Kyle said, if you wanted to have a broader discussion, that is a different topic.
Thanks.
Any other discussion? Alder Reed.
Oh, thank you. So, yes, I am wondering just what our options are if we go against it. I'm assuming, but
That would be a possibility, yes. Your options at this point are two. I mean, if the resolution before you is strictly procedural, and it is strictly to inform the parties that someone from the city has authority to sign on behalf of the city. That is the sole reason behind the resolution tonight. The mayor and the clerk by statute are the officers that are supposed to sign offers to purchase and contracts on behalf of the city. It can be anybody. If the mayor was going to be absent, it could be the council president, it could be the administrator, but the title company wants to know who they can rely on to have authority from the council. So that's the sole reason for this resolution tonight. The bigger question about reconsidering the offer to purchase, your options at this point, I mean, the city is under contract with a closing date that is approaching, well, under the contract, it's scheduled for June, I think, sometime in June, but the buyer has not yet cleared its due diligence period. The buyer has not yet gave the city notice that they are ready to go forward. So they are still doing their evaluations. Their period to complete their evaluations comes due in the next few weeks, if I remember correctly. And then it is 30 days after that in which we're supposed to close. So I'm not exactly sure where the buyers are in this process right now, but the city still is under contract. If the city were to inform the buyer that it no longer is interested in selling, the buyer would have the opportunity to sue the city either for whatever cash they're out or for specific performance to compel the city to go forward and complete the contract anyway. And without any, well, I can't gauge the success of a suit like that right now as we sit here, but that is where this would go next. The other alternative is that the buyer might say, well, okay, we'll be out of here as well. Here's what you're going to pay us to go away. And then we would negotiate a settlement along that line. Very premature thoughts on my part, but that's generally what the two options are.
Any other questions? Okay, you have the motion before you. And all those in favor of moving forward?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. So now we need to take action on the claims in the amount of $421,784.73. So can I have a motion for the approval of the claims? She wants to know if she can ask a question first. I'm usually a motion and then discussion, but I mean, I don't think it.
Yeah, however you'd like to handle it.
Go ahead.
I was just, when I was going through this, it's just a different report, but I'm wondering if about, let's see, it's 1, 2, 3 pages in. There's no listing of vendors or anything. It's just check numbers and dates, and we don't usually have that.
What's the title on the top?
Well, it's the payroll claims report. I'm wondering if it's supposed to be in there.
I think it's the payroll claims without people's names.
Okay. And is that something new we're going to be starting, or is that just, was that an exception this time?
I think she's included it in the last time, and she's trying to include more in her reports, and so she's been kind of tweaking it. So I think it's something that we might see moving forward, but we probably will not be seeing the names associated with the payroll.
Okay. Thank you. With that in mind, I'm happy to make a motion to pass the claims in the amount of $421,784.73.
Gray seconds.
Okay, you have a motion from Alder Motif and a second from Alder Gray to approve the claims of $421,784.73. And can you take a roll call on that, Pat?
Gray.
Aye.
Motif.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Roki.
Aye.
Steiner.
Aye.
Finkler.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, and now we have reports of city officers. Kyle, if you would
All right, thank you.
like to go.
Folsom Street, that continues to go well. The weather has been a little bit off and throwing a few curveballs to us. There was no work yesterday with the rain, and in the past, since our last meeting, we had some groundwater issues in the basement of one home, and Jason and the utility crews were out on a Friday evening. They did figure that out, and I think we've sort of got the longer-term solution in place now. As we move through the next couple weeks, you'll see some sidewalks being removed, the curbs being poured, and the project keeps moving forward well. So I think overall, it's still been a very positive project. The wastewater treatment plant, they had to replace some of their filter sand, and that's actually tons of anthracite. And it came on, I think, 15 pallets. They actually anticipated 5 pallets, but it was 15 pallets. And they had to feed all of that into a hopper. And so between the two operators and Katie and the two DPW staff, they helped move the pallets and fill the hopper. And they were able to do that and do it so efficiently that they saved about $4,000 on the installation service. So thank you to the wastewater operators and the public works because that really helped with getting the project done a little faster and saving a little money. So that was very helpful. Last week we had a rural fire group meeting. They met last week to talk about basically the big item on the agenda was the purchase of the next fire engine. And at this point, they've decided to hold off right now on purchasing the new engine, and they prefer to maintain our current vehicle for the time being. They have, they're kind of worried about the overall cost, the way that the costs really spiraled out of control, and some upcoming repair costs that they have, and some new vehicles on the rural group side. So for right now, they're kind of holding steady, and hopefully the repair and maintenance, we can keep up with that engine and keep it going for a few years until we can rebid and go for the permanent replacement. And finally, on April 20th, Mr. Tyland's third grade class from St. Jerome's came to tour City Hall and learn about city government, and it was actually a lot of fun. They got to see Pat and myself and got to ask a lot of questions. They got to meet Mayor Hammer. They got to see a lot of the different things, but I think the top two things that they wanted to know, they wanted to see the jail cells. And then the number two question was they wanted to know if the mayor has a bedroom at City Hall. So, because he wakes up at 4 and they were concerned on where he actually sleeps. So, but other than that, it was a good opportunity for the kids to get to see City Hall and ask questions. So, and that's all I had.
And there were a lot of questions.
Yes.
It was ongoing, so it was a lot of fun. Best wishes and good luck to the Columbus archery team as they travel to Louisville, Kentucky for the national tournament. So that takes place rather soon. I don't know the exact dates, but that's an exciting. My son was able to attend nationals when he was in high school, and that is quite a thing. So also then we have citywide garage sale coming up May 11th, 12th, and 13th. And then the Columbus High School Cares Color Run Walk is tomorrow, May 3rd at Fireman's Park. I don't know all the details. I just know that it's happening. I think the elementary school is in the morning, I believe, and then high school, middle school in the afternoon. So if you want to throw color at somebody, you get out to the park. Those are wild. It's incredible. So that's all I have. So can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
Alder Finkler will motion to adjourn.
Alder Rolke will second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alder Finkler and a second by Alder Rolke to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
So do you want to give 5 minutes or so before we go in? Okay, about a 5-minute break.
Good evening, everybody. If I can just have you take your seats, please.
First time anyone's used it.
I know.
The third graders did it. So.
Good evening, everybody, and I'd like to welcome you all to tonight's Columbus Common Council Committee of the Whole meeting. It is Tuesday, May 2nd, and the time is 7:20 p.m. And Pat, if I could have you take a roll call, please.
Finkler,
Here.
Hammer,
Here.
Gray,
Here.
Motiv,
Present.
Reed,
Here.
Rolke,
Here.
Steiner,
Here.
all present.
And the meeting has been properly noticed?
It is.
Okay. And if I could just get a motion to approve the agenda tonight?
Before we approve the agenda, I would like to point out that at our last committee of the whole, the will of the council was to either discuss the CHLPC ordinance at a special meeting between now and then, or to have it on this agenda, and the mayor unilaterally decided not to do so.
That was a staff oversight. We talked about it having a special meeting, and when we talked about it, there was we had the special meeting for the council orientation, so that was not the mayor's decision. That was a staff oversight.
Okay, and so if I could have a motion to approve the agenda tonight?
Alder Motif will make a motion to approve the agenda.
Alder Finkler will second.
Okay. It has been moved by Alder Motif and seconded by Alder Finkler. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Citizen comments, I have Mark Rohde. If you could come and state your name and address, please.
Mark Rohde, 743 West School Street, Columbus. I'll try to be quick this time. Reviewing the meeting minutes from the last meeting, it looks like there might have been an oversight that something was not included. Alder Finkler had some questions about the Japanese knotweed on the Tower Drive property. And I don't want to make light of this. This is a serious thing. There's properties in town that have been fighting this battle for over 20 years, and they haven't been able to get rid of it. Alder Motif, it's in our neighborhood, a block and a half from our house. I get to the pleasure of seeing your backyard every single day. It's beautiful. I'd hate to see this knotweed encroach into our neighborhood. And while Kyle did give accurate information last week, you spray it with 2,4-D, it was far from complete. You don't just spray it with 2,4-D. It grows up, you spray it with 2,4-D. You wait for a week, you cut it, you spray the stump with 2,4-D. You wait for it to grow up again. You do that 3, 4, 5 times a year. I'll share the instructions on how to get rid of it from the D on our website. You do it 3 times a year, 4 times a year, 5 times a year, and maybe you get rid of it. So it's not as easy as just, oh, we sprayed it once. And to the city's credit, they did go out and spray it. I noticed some signage out there earlier in the week that there were pesticides sprayed. So kudos to the city. We got the first application sprayed. However, when I was out there today, I did notice on the south side of the road where it was sprayed, there was a few dead leaves. And just this afternoon, a very healthy crop of it growing up on the south side of the road. And when we look across the street to the north side of the road, there's a healthy crop there as well. So it's not, although it is contained on that side of the street to near the creek, it's already crept 60 feet under the street to the other side of the street. So, yeah, Kyle, the information last week or 2 weeks ago was accurate, but it's a bigger problem, and the information was far from complete. So I think we need to take a closer look at our city weed officer and really trying to get that under control, because it's not going to go away. And it's already crept 60, 70 feet and tunneled under the street to the other side. Thank you.
And then Jesse Pica Holst?
Actually, if we're going to be an agenda item, we can just wait to speak until then. Or would you like us to speak? We're here to represent the buyer, the attempted buyers of the Digi estate.
If you have a statement to make, now would be a good time for that, but if you don't mind staying around for the agenda item, if there are questions to be directed to you as well?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
I'll go first. Hi, pleasure to finally meet everybody in person. My name is Peggy Adams. I work for Solidarity Realty. I represent both Brian and David in the potential purchase of 1400 Park. Just kind of a little bit quick on my background. I have a degree in real estate, so I do have extensive knowledge as far as I've taken inspection, I've taken appraisal, I've taken finance. And then I've also worked in affordable housing quite a bit. So I probably did about, I would say 13 years in affordable housing. So it's kind of my background.
I'm Jesse Pikeholz. Don't worry, no one gets it right on the first pass. I'm also a Solidarity Realty. I was brought on in this transaction after the last attempt to purchase didn't pan out. I've got a background in restoration and renovation. I was a former state certified lead safe renovator. I've worked on projects like the Governor Horde Mansion in Fort Atkinson after that had a catastrophic fire many years ago. I understand you have another governor's mansion here in town as well. I was a project manager for the Orpheum Theater restoration after that fire in 2005 and 6. And I was the chair of the Preservation Development Committee for the Marquette Neighborhood Association. We have 2 of the city's 5 historic districts. So I've got a pretty good background in this. I was brought in, I know there's some concerns about whether or not the home or the barns could be saved. And I was able to tour those myself just the other day with Brandon from Zoning and Development. There's nothing in that home that's a deal breaker or even really in the home that difficult. The major barn has some challenges in the roof and a main support beam, but those are all readily doable things. There's nothing that I saw on that property that's, except for maybe in some of the shacks to the outside, nothing in the main buildings themselves, the barns, the major garage, or the home were unfixable or unrestorable. So I just want to get that out there right now and put that to bed. I think most of you are familiar with our proposal. We wrote an offer for $587,000. That includes typically the seller pays agent commissions, but our buyers are including that in there, so they're actually paying that out of pocket. And it makes the city whole for its purchase and about $10,000 off the top, minus closing costs or whatever. We want to make sure that the city isn't left holding the bag on this. We understand that there's a lot of uncertainty. I know that there's a desire to grow the city and develop what you can. I understand there's challenges to that on the periphery of the city as well. But my understanding about the funds that were acquired for this is that there's a requirement for affordable housing, for subsidized housing in the project as well. My experience working with developers is that even when you work with city grants, when you're working with WIDA, and you take these programs and you wrap them in a bow and hand them over to developers, it's still remarkably difficult to get any developer to come to the table to include that. So I don't know what kind of bind the city would be in if you don't take it off your hands, but we want very much to do that. And Brian and David want to be members of this community. They want to be your neighbors. They want to strive very hard to make sure that whenever possible that they're going through local vendors. When they're building this up to bring tourists into your city, barns full of tourists routinely and dragging them as guests through your downtown. And I understand we've been watching your city council meetings for some time now, that's a major concern is how to revitalize the downtown. And to keep businesses open, you need customers, and we want to bring you those tourists. The plan, as you know, is to restore the home, restore those 2 large barns and the multi-car garage, plant a large lavender field to the north and east of the property, and establish an apiary, beekeeping, and I understand there's even a beekeeping supply store here in town that would see some of the benefits of that as well. They want to eventually turn the main barn into a venue and the smaller barn, we'll call it Barn 2, into a guest house bed and breakfast, somewhere between 2 and 4 units. They also want to make sure that for at least 5 years of their commercial operations, that they're going to be giving back to the community. So they've offered in the offer to give 2% to either a mixture of the Friends of the Columbus Library or the Columbus School Nutrition Angel Fund. And because time is of the essence here, we can offer a 30-day close from the time that our offer is accepted. When I understand you can't vote on that tonight, but there will be that opportunity in 2 weeks. Logistically, we've been hearing about some of the concerns already from alders and from constituents. The main one that we've heard so far is can that barn be repaired? And how soon would this happen? And how soon could the business be up and running so it could be a revenue stream for the city? Brian and David want to tackle that barn first because that is under the onslaught of entropy and weather currently. They would like, again, to do this quickly so they can have the property in hand and repair at least the hole in the barn roof and the support beam by this winter. So that is pretty accelerated. David is, he's a naval reservist. He'd like to phase out of his day job, so making this whole project come to fruition is part and parcel of that. So he's really got a fire under him to do that. He's taken a course called Boots to Business, which helps veterans become small business owners. And he's also taken a course on growing lavender from, I believe it's the University of Michigan, and is working with the U.S. Lavender Society. So he's got his chops set on there too. My understanding is that he did grab some samples of the soil and that he said it was exquisite for growing lavender as well. So everything seems to be like the stars are aligning here. They also want to promote the Amtrak station in town. You know, this is the kind of venue that can bring tourists from Milwaukee and from Chicago. We don't have any details laid out, but there's been discussion of possibly getting, you know, like a bus to bring tourists from the station and you know, drive them through the downtown area before they house them for the weekend.
If I could have you wrap it up in about a minute.
Absolutely,
here.
yep.
Yeah.
And then the last set of concerns is why not going through the request for proposal process? And there's a couple of legitimate concerns there is that currently, as it stands, that process is set to have a deadline for receiving proposals by June 9th and make a final decision by August 1st. Interestingly enough, Brian he's a doctor at UW, and he'll be starting a job at the medical school there in urology, and he starts his new job in August. They're trying very hard to not move twice. They've done that enough in their lives, and they don't want to do it ever, ever, ever again. If this doesn't work out, they're going to have to fish or cut bait and find somewhere else to call their dream home. We can offer that 30-day closing, so even if you accept our offer at the next council meeting, we can close as early as about June 20th. So that would get this off your books, off your radar, so you can focus on what are you going to do about the fire department? What are you going to do about the waterworks? We want those to be able to be your focus as were outlined, I believe, in some city planning consultant reports a while ago as high priority. And then they want to contribute to that discussion as your neighbors. So we'll open it up if anyone has any questions.
I'm going to do it on, when we come back up during.
Right, yeah, not
Oh,
during the
oh,
comment,
yeah.
but if anybody from the council has questions when we get to
Thank
that
you
agenda
guys for
item.
listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Is there anybody else who wanted to speak who was not here in time to sign up? Go ahead.
Hello again. I just wanted to touch base quickly on the Dingy property, which you guys have heard plenty of tonight and at the last several meetings as well. I'd like to first start with saying thank you to Mayor Hammer for being the only person to publicly come forward and announce that you guys have used ARPA funds for this. Despite what some of you may believe, you are required to do affordable and low-income housing with that money. You will not be able to do $400,000 homes with that. You will not be able to do homes that necessarily match that neighborhood already. You will be closer to doing, I believe it's Redbud Trails type homes, 2-bedroom homes, small affordable homes. You won't be getting the $6,900 in taxes for each of those homes. You're going to get 7 to 10 homes because the right-of-way runs up to the front door damn near. And you're not going to be making as much as some of you like to believe. By doing it this way, not only do you establish some faith with the community, who is by and large in favor of them receiving this property. They were in favor of it before, they're in favor of it now. And that's only growing. So what you're going to see is the people keep coming forward and asking you to do things. And this is where we're asking you to listen to us and do as we're asking you. We all recognize that we need housing, we need development. This isn't the way to do it. I work regularly in a community a little bit smaller than Columbus every weekend. And I see regularly 300 to 900 people pack into a place to come and watch live music. I talked to one alder who told me that you can't do that kind of thing without a larger tax base. Nobody's going to want to do that here. We're too small. We need to grow. Why is it a community smaller than us was able to become a destination for entertainment? Every weekend, multiple events throughout the year. Many things in the community actually host their events at a place like this. We have places in town that could actually do something like this. Maybe not on the grand scale on a regular basis, but we do have businesses that could benefit from working to become a destination versus trying to develop houses. Because if we can put 10 houses over there, those 10 houses aren't going to do much for this city right away. Not for at least another 10 to 15, 20 years. If we put another 10 houses in, we can keep adding on to it, but without doing things to draw in the business beforehand, those people aren't going to spend their money here. They're not going to grow our businesses on a regular basis. People come to this venue from all over the area in southeastern Wisconsin. I drive an hour and a half every day to get there and then an hour and a half home to go to this community. That's on a little lake in the middle of nowhere. It's possible. You guys got to have the vision and the desire to do so, which is part of what our 2050 plan recommended to do. Incentivize and grow business and development. You don't have to own the property to do that. You guys can do it the right way and do it another way. There's more than one way to skin a cat, despite what Alder Gray liked to tell me, that there's only one way. That's not true, and it's never been true. What I'd like to see is you guys to actually move forward with this plan. I know several alders have spoken in the past about they'd like to just move on from this, wipe their hands of it, maybe make a little bit of money on the deal, and move on. That's what I think you should do. That's what many of us think you should do, and we hope that you do the right thing this time. Thank you. Oh, I never said my address or my name. Dominic Famularo, 324 West Mill.
And is there anybody else who would like to speak who was not able to sign up? Okay, seeing none. The next item on the agenda is the committee and commission minutes included in your packet. Beautification from 3/13/23, Columbus Utilities from 3/16/23, Senior Center Advisory from 3/2/23. Any questions, concerns, or comments about those minutes? Okay. The next item on the agenda is to discuss the recommendation of offer to purchase 1400 Park Avenue.
I have some thoughts. So I am honestly thrilled that this couple has fallen in love with our beautiful city, and I hope that they can find their happiness here and help our city to grow. However, I've done a little research and I have some concerns before I could give my vote to support their offer to purchase. And contrary to what certain people have said, it has not been hidden that we have purchased this land with ARPA funding. It was grant money that we received and we did make it known. Maybe you didn't know. I will also say that I have talked with 2 attorneys, and because the ARPA grant is relatively new, it's a new thing that came out by the feds. It's a good chance that this city is going to have to return this money. When you use your ARPA funding, you have to present an intent. The intent that this council gave for the use of the ARPA funding was to provide affordable residential housing. Again, I'd like to say there was a large misnomer out there. Affordable housing does not mean we are putting out Section 8 housing, that we are putting in any kind of subsidized housing. It means it's affordable. And our goal from getting the developers to give us a plan was to do starter houses for young families or smaller houses for older people who are looking to downsize. I think we are putting ourselves at risk by having to return this money. And we are at risk for looking like we are laundering federal money. And I did get that opinion from the League of Municipalities. And they did say it needs to definitely be looked in more because we stated a different intent with this money. And now we look like we're just out to make a profit. And this is really wrong. I would also, one more point, and then I'll be done, Amy. I'd like to point out that this is a long-term vision. I wish we would quit being short-sighted. We are landlocked. We do not have the ability to grow our residential housing. We could potentially put 10 to 18 homes in this area that could provide us with $63,000 to $114,000 annually. I think about what the long-term effects on your property taxes are going to be about that. It's going to reduce your property taxes. If I am the minority in this vote, I also hope that the rest of the council takes their time to consider the fact that there is no limitations on how long this couple can take to supposedly fulfill this dream. At the last meeting, they said this was a lifelong project. Their words, not mine. So that does not mean that we are going to see results from their business within a year to two. And that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Just a quick clarification, because I know what Aldermotive was trying to say. She didn't mention that if we sell it back, if we sell it to this couple, is when we would be at risk of losing
Yeah.
our ARPA funds.
I'm sorry if I
Just-
wasn't clear on that. If we move forward with the RFP plan that we have in place and go forward with the development, we are not at risk for laundering. By selling the property to this couple, we are at risk here as a council in a city.
All right, thank you. I had a few thoughts on this as well. I'll try to keep it brief. I tend to ramble on if I get too long into things. First off, I think it's kind of unethical to entertain this idea based upon how this is going on. We should not be in the business of flipping properties. We just purchased this, and we had it with a purpose. We all sat here and discussed it on length as to why we would do this and why we entertain this. I also find it inappropriate to indulge this in an open session. This is a private matter for the city that needs to be negotiated that way. This should not be done in this format. The house was not up for sale, it was up for RFP. So taking in an offer like this seems rather inappropriate to me. The other thing, I also find it unethical to have this social media campaign from the buyers to try to strong arm this council into selling this property to them. To me, that's basically like if Ian, as a realtor, goes to all the neighbors around a house and says, make sure this guy sells his house to you. That's illegal. It's wrong. You can't be doing that. And that's essentially what's happening. Whether their intent was to curb whatever there was, this is what's happening, is they're putting out a campaign to basically force this council to make a decision on what they want. It's not a protest. It's not the same thing as arguing what they don't like. This is them trying to coerce is not the right term, but force the council to make a decision on this. As far as the money they're putting up for this, we purchased this at a rather low price. We put in a low offer. We weren't expecting an offer back or a counter offer, but they took it. That's when they jumped in and wanted to offer the same price. Clearly, they didn't put in their best offer, as they have a lot to add more on top of this. They took our offer over theirs. That's what the trust company wanted. That's what the dingy, whoever was in charge of it for, said, this is the best offer, we're taking this. They lost the offer. They need to accept it. You can't just keep going back and forth on this. It's not how that works. As far as the amount of money that they're giving to us, $10,000 on top of the $500,000 that was put into it, it's not a lot. It sounds like a lot, but that's like maybe half a road. That's not one. So once it's used, it's gone. It doesn't come back. Whereas building on this property, that'll give us new tax revenue for the foreseeable future. And that's something this city desperately needs. If you like your roads fixed, you want these culverts fixed, you want everything done right and kept going within the city, we need new tax revenue. If we back out on this RFP that says to all planners and developers, we're not ready to do this. We don't want to grow. We don't want this growth. We already have this out there. There are offers coming in. We know that. I don't know who, I can't say, but there are offers coming in to develop this land. If we just say, no, we're going to back out of it, waffling just sends the wrong message to that completely. And the other thing I want to mention is we all discussed this. Most of us agreed that this was the right choice to make. There were a lot of contentions, a lot of issues, and even I had some because I don't like judging into private business as a public office. But if we're going to take this and we're going to do this based upon public opinion that's coming up, because it's not our job to poll the entire city. We're making decisions on your behalf for your benefit, for our benefit, because we all live here. If we do this, it should go to a referendum. Because if we're taking a public opinion to decide whether or not we should move forward with selling this property, it should be in referendum to take everyone's public opinion, not just those that are brave enough to stand up here and speak. That's pretty much all I got.
Honestly, I don't have a lot to add that Alder Motive and Alder Steiner haven't already said. I mostly just want to echo what they said. When the council was discussing purchasing this, and we were discussing it for quite some time, and it was on the agenda for the public to know that we were discussing it for quite some time, despite the fact that typical real estate discussions are held in closed session, it was notified. And like Alder Motive said, the fact that we used ARPA funds were never concealed. I personally said that. I know I had because I was the one that said it. But aside from all of that, we do have a strong need for growth in our community. One of the things when I moved here, and I am in real estate, one of the overwhelming concepts and beliefs was that Columbus was closed off to development. That's something that many local developers believe us to be. And that's part of the reason why we are landlocked and why specific people will not sell their land. One of the largest landholders specifically told us that he didn't believe we were capable of doing it. This is us showing that we are capable and we are ready to grow and we want what's best for our future. When you look at our budget and what we're doing and what all of you want the streets fixed like I want the streets fixed. We can't even afford to do all of our top priority streets with the current tax revenue we have. It is not sustainable. Where we are going is not sustainable. We must grow. No one wants to tear down historic properties. That is not what we are in the business of doing up here. But we do have to keep our community going forward. That is a basic function of government, and it is what we are attempting to do here. One of the big things that council did want to do is save the home. And I am still personally committed to doing that any way possible that we can, is saving that home. The barns, while they may be salvageable with a lot of money and a lot of work, I believe the home is much more significantly historic, and that is something that we should save and maintain. I don't know. To me, this is a no-brainer, and our council, it was very close to a unanimous support of purchasing this property. Of course, at that time, we had no idea who the other buyers were, unlike a lot of people like to believe. We were not made privy to any other offers on this property, and we did not steal it from anyone else. In fact, the final offer that we accepted was a counter offer presented to the city, not an offer the city made. The sellers specifically made an offer to the city. The city said yes. That's how it happened. And, well, that's about all I've got. Mostly, I agree with Alder Motive and Alder Steiner.
Oh, thank you. Well, I had been against the purchase of the dingy property from the beginning. I simply saw it as a unending albatross of expenses. We keep talking about bringing in the tax revenue. It'll probably be 20 years before we can start seeing the plus side of it. It's going to be a fortune to develop for putting in all utilities, the grading, the knocking things down. I would be shocked if the total cost was under $2 million. And we keep talking about, we need to bring the finances in, bring it in, but the upfront losses will be pretty extensive. I find it such a gamble. We have no idea what the lots might sell for. I was really disappointed that we never had a good ARPA discussion. There was no talk on, hey, there's ARPA fundings. Let's talk for a long time about how this could be used. I would have wanted to go with stormwater. That is one of the uses that's listed when I was, looking on a U.S. ARPA websites. I mean, it just listed it right out there. Going further down, there was something about affordable housing, which I also take to assume to mean Section 8. I'm just so afraid that this is going to be a giant pit of financial loss that also comes with just historical loss. I don't see where there's any gain for the city going forward on the project. I would like to sell it.
She hasn't spoken yet. She can go first.
Oh, okay. I agree with Alder Reed. I do actually live in that neighborhood, and in the Highland Ridge neighborhood, I should say. And I already have 2-bedroom houses on one side of me. I don't want 2-bedroom houses on the other side of me. And I know others feel the same way within my neighborhood. I also think that having something beautiful to drive into town and to see is just, I don't know, you get off the 151 and you pull in, you're like, hey, there's a hospital, woohoo, yay, Columbus has a hospital. But then you're driving down the road and it's like, oh, there's lavender fields, it's pretty, what's being done, the house is being refurbished. I mean, I even run down now, I look at the farm and I'm like, it is cool looking. How many little towns out there can you say has a farm in the middle of town? It's just cool looking. And I'm for selling the property, not just because I want something cool looking, but for also what Alder Reed said. Where is the cost benefit analysis to the utilities that we have to put within that property? And the infrastructure that needs to be in there to be able to sell the lots. And I've heard ranges between 6 lots and 18 lots, and I have not seen any cost benefit analysis within there that has said what we're going to get back, what utilities are going to be, and how that is going to happen. So I just say we have other property that we can be looking at. We have 4 acres down the road a little ways. Why aren't we trying to mend some of these relationships with property owners around this city? Tower Drive, we should be putting houses into Tower Drive because that is a residential area. That should be down there. So there are opportunities. We do have to grow for tax base. So I just feel like it's going to cost the city more money than we're going to get out of it in the future.
I just want to address a few things that I think were stated incorrectly. Alder Reed, we did bring forth other uses of the ARPA funds. The CDA put out a request for proposal to the public and to the employees. We vetted them. We brought them forward to you. It was for everything from projects that supported the pool to new telephone systems to some stormwater stuff, and it was all voted down by the council. So we did discuss and talk about alternate uses of ARPA funds. I'd also like to say, we did vote to put an RFP out for Tower Drive. So we are looking at potentially developing that as well.
Yep.
The other thing that we talked about was doing a sort of a staggered development. We understand that on the back end of the property, there is higher valued homes, and we don't want to detract from that. So what we had talked about internally as a council was doing something that was a little lower and then increasing the value as we got closer to the other homes. The other thing that nobody's talked about is these guys don't have a conditional use of permit. They haven't done a public hearing. I don't know about this community, but I sure as heck don't want to live next to a noisy and busy wedding venue. We had decided as previously in a council, and not even by this council, this was even before us, that our business district was going to be developed for downtown. We created a TID to revitalize our downtown, and that was the path we take. And if we don't start looking long-term and we don't start following through on plans, we will never fix roads, we will never build a fire department, we will never build a new police station, because we won't have the funds.
You had mentioned about the money laundering. So if this goes out till the end of June or June 9th or whatever, and then the council would decide to sell to those buyers, then we don't lose.
Right, we need to go through this RFP process to ensure that it's the best possible.
It needs to be developed.
You know, I don't think anybody's questioning residential development. You know, yeah, the city is landlocked. Can we try to work with the people that have the city landlocked? I mean, those are things that we need to repair those relationships and try to move forward with those relationships. No guarantee there. You know, I know as a city, we ask for business plans when, you know, somebody buys up property and we want to know what their business plan is. And it usually needs to be a pretty extensive plan, but yet, you know, we're buying property for future development. Yes, I agree. You know, we do need the development, but, you know, do we have a business plan? Do we have a plan put together as to, you know, what the costs are going to be? And so those are the things that concern me. You know, if we end up losing the $500 and some odd thousand because we don't wait, you know, we're almost locked into that. Otherwise, we really put ourselves into a world of hurt then. So it's a lot to think about.
I think Kyle was trying to speak.
I'm not sure that waiting just till June 9th by itself fixes the problem. I do think that this is a fixable problem. I think if the council approaches it as more of a negotiation with the purchaser and we enter into some sort of developer's agreement where if there's objectives that would fall under ARPA, fixing blight, things like that, that would fall under eligible uses. And as we looked into the final rule for vacant and abandoned properties, they talked about how building stronger communities through investments, specifically the rehabilitation of blighted properties, and they pointed to high rates of vacant and abandoned properties in neighborhoods can exacerbate public health disparities. And so they had these things where the funds could go to cost to secure vacant or abandoned properties to reduce their negative impact. So if we can come to an agreement where they agree to reduce some of the blight and reduce the negative impact on the impacted neighborhood, we will have achieved the ARPA objective. You know, so I think there's a way to do it, but it probably involves the purchaser and the city maybe getting around a table and figuring out what that looks like and what kind of time frame we're looking at and what they're willing to do, if the council is interested in doing that. And that, I think, protects us then from having to potentially lose the money because we're still achieving the objective.
And that would be a lot more of interest to me. So for me, selling to them was a complete non-starter because of losing the ARPA funds. I think that would just be insane. If there is a way to sell it to them and maintain the ARPA funds, I could come around and approve selling it to them. I still believe that developing it is the best path forward for Columbus. But if we could at least retain our ARPA funds, that would be the only way I would even consider supporting selling it to them. Otherwise, it's just completely absurd. I still do believe that it's important and we should continue with the RFP process. Like Alder Steiner alluded to, is discontinuing this is just a message to the community that we do not want development. And it's just showing that Columbus is not open and we don't want to do these things. So I still think it's not the best decision to move forward. But if it is the will of the council to sell it, I think we do at the very least need to come up with a stronger developers agreement so that we can maintain our ARPA funds and make sure that we're not just basically giving away $500,000 for a lavender farm.
Sorry. That's what I was trying to allude to when I was first talking, that if I am the minority in my feeling and we do move forward with this, there needs to be some conditions in there. As I said, timelines for getting things done, because we can't just let it sit there for 20 years in the same state it's in.
Some nodding heads. Does anybody else have any thoughts on the conversation?
I think the big thing where we're at is it's definitely, at this point, not ready to move forward for council decision. I think we would need a developers agreement with them at the very least that council can debate on at our next committee of the whole meeting. It's moving forward and selling it to them, I think, is a massive $500,000 risk. So if that's the will of the council, I think that's a huge mistake. If the council wants to entertain selling it to them, I believe we need to have them come up with a developers agreement, perhaps have a special meeting with them and the council all together so that we could jointly come up with something that might be more expedient to do it in that way. But as it is, I still think moving forward with this offer to purchase is foolhardy. It would be a massive mistake.
Yeah, I'm good with trying to expedite an agreement on a purchase to make sure that we can still use the ARPA funds. I mean, it is what it is. ARPA funds were used. We have to figure out a way to not get ourselves into some legal trouble with the fact that ARPA funds were used. And I think it is a compromise for us to work together and have an agreement to make sure that we are still in compliance with the ARPA funds and can, move forward with letting them live their dream.
Yeah, I'm feeling most comfortable with this idea of better developers agreements. And, I would just, if this can be done, I would definitely want to use the funds for most likely stormwater, which is just something we very much need, and a very official ARPA list.
Alder Steiner, any thoughts?
I still think the best action is to develop the land. We purchased it for that purpose. We discussed it at length. It was the intent to start this out front and center to get this city moving in the direction it needs to. We can do something with ARPA funds for stormwater, and it covers a small portion of it. It does not cover everything we need. There's too much that needs to be done. $500,000 is a lot of money to an individual. To a city, it doesn't get you very far. But as far as you can throw a ball, it's not much. We need something that continually provides tax revenue to this city. We need as much as we possibly can. Well, last time we heard that 3% growth was what we needed to maintain what we need in the city. We're going to need at least 5% to get back to where we should have been. We missed the ball when Sun Prairie and all these other cities were growing like crazy. And where's Columbus? Sitting on its hands. We didn't do what we needed to do. For whatever reason, you can point a finger at anyone that you want. It's irrelevant. Now is the time. We cannot wait any longer. In 10 years, we're going to start taking out debt to cover our bills. If we don't start taking out debt to get out of that position, it is not going to fix anything. I can guarantee that. Is as nice as it would be to have this couple in here and building their lavender farm and their bees and having their venues, which I've talked to a couple people behind that area, they can still hear the stuff from the pavilion, much less right behind their house. They're not excited about that. They want to see more families. They want to see more kids. There's a lot of new people that want to come to Columbus, and there's nowhere for them to go. We need more housing. As unfortunate as it is, if you wait too long, we're going to have to start making decisions that nobody's going to like. And it's going to have to be that way because we're in dire straits. The bill will come due eventually. It has to happen. We're trying to get in front of it before it comes down.
I just like that somebody other than me said it.
He had a question.
Could I address a couple of things that were brought up briefly? Because there seems to be some premises that are maybe not objectively true here that I can bring to light, particularly about the Roadmap 2050 plan.
Can I just have you come to the?
Sure. After one of the previous meetings, I know Alder Gray had spoken and given a quote to the press that the Roadmap 2050 plan stipulated that there needed to be a 3% population growth in the city annually, year over year, in order to be able to cover the city's debts for the projects that are needed, whether it be the fire station, public works, renovating City Hall, the senior center, library, police station. Do I have that right? Okay, well then the press misquoted you because that was almost verbatim what was said. It's not a 3% population growth. That's astronomical and it's not realistic. Specifically, it's a 3%. Okay, well, I'm just saying that's what the press put in print and I haven't heard it refuted. So I just want to help you out there. What the Roadmap 2050 plan does say, I've got it here, is that debt capacity projections are dependent on the rate of growth in new taxable property. And this study is assuming a 3% annual growth rate. Now, that annual growth rate is talking about all taxable assets in the city of Columbus. And it says, which requires growth in housing. No one's against growth in housing. Brian and David want to see the city grow, right? The fact of the matter is that, unfortunately, the elephant in the room is Kurt Hansen has you surrounded. That's unfortunate. At some point, you're going to have to mend that fence because this 7.5 acres is not going to do you 3% year over year over year. Even if you got 30 parcels, even if you took 7.5 acres and got quarter-acre lots and got 30 parcels out of it and sold it at market rate for $300,000 each, that's going to get you $9 million of taxable assets when you need 14 to get that 3%. And I spoke with the guy who actually wrote the Roadmap 2050, and he said that does not necessarily include, and he'd have to check on it, but he's not sure that whether or not that includes inflation or increasing in tax assessments themselves. So it's not like you need to build 3% of taxable asset. It's not that building is the only way you can get that 3% is what I'm saying. And that seems to be.
Do you know what our annual growth has been for the past decade?
No.
1.2%. Do you know what it has been for the past couple of years?
No.
Not even one. We need to do something.
Yeah, something needs to happen, but this one drop in the bucket isn't going to do it. Maybe you need to talk about the town of Elba and some annexation policy. They're already using your schools, and maybe growth needs to happen in that direction. But 7.5 acres is not going to solve this much larger problem.
This is off the
thank
agenda. Just to clarify, the 3% is related to the debt, not population growth. And the 3%, just so everyone knows, if the properties appreciate by inflation by 3%, but we're not actually getting net new construction by 3%, all that means is we can borrow more, but the existing citizens and your existing tax bill pay more to cover it. Net new construction means we actually have new people contributing to that so that we can collect more money without raising the taxes. So we can certainly try charge more debt service, but it'll just be charging more to the people that are here if there's not actually net new construction. So it's helpful because we get to charge more, but not necessarily helpful to the existing taxpayers.
Taxes don't go up.
About $1 a day by my calculations.
Alder Finkler?
Yeah, all this conversation about the dire situation that the city is in makes me even more concerned that a cost-benefit analysis was not performed. What I don't want to happen is the decision that I help make up here on council is we're having a conversation or a future council member is having a conversation that's saying because of the decision they made, we have all this property that we're in the whole XYZ money on, and, you know, we can't sell those lots for, I don't even know what the estimate is that we'd have to sell them for to get our money back on the infrastructure. But bottom line is if we're in that dire of a situation, that we need to not make reckless purchases without a cost-benefit analysis.
I think at this point, now it's a matter of finishing up with the RFP process so that we do not lose the $500,000. And as much as I would like to move forward in one way or another, I think we're locked in. Otherwise, we'd lose $500,000. So.
Sorry.
Alder Motta-Todd.
Sure, no problem.
I agree with Mayor Hammer. We are not ready to move forward in any way, shape, or form with this offer to purchase. And, you know, if we need to see cost benefits, if some people need to see that to make their decision, we need to vet that. By the time we do all that vetting, we are at the RFP period as it is. And so I think it just makes forward to move forward with the RFP process.
Oh, thank you. I'm feeling no actual obligation to finish the RFP process. I mean, I would like to request a formal developers agreement started, just so we can see if it might fit in with ARPA needs. I just really don't feel cornered to the search we had started to see what different ideas would come in. I'm just don't think we'll know how much money it's going to cost until we're really, really deep into things. And I just think this whole thing has been such a mess.
Alder Gray?
I don't know if Joe wanted to. Yeah.
She will speak for me.
I just want to mention, I didn't hear that we have to go through the RFP process, and I'm looking at you, Kyle, to confirm. I did not hear that we have to go through the RFP process, otherwise we risk ARPA funds. What I'm hearing is if we do have a builder's agreement and we make it very clear that the blight is being worked on, we're improving the city, the neighborhood, whatever is the requirement in the ARPA funds, we do not have to go to RFP for this. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't think following the RFP process endangers the funds. I think the ultimate meeting the goals of the ARPA process is what you need to make sure you do, by whatever means. The only hard deadline, if you stick with the RFP process, is really the deadline. After that, you can go as fast as you want. Those are suggested dates after the deadline. The only other thing is that, you know, if you do have people from outside the area, and there were some affiliated with Faith Lutheran, they brought in a builder. I don't know if it's a solid relationship or they just happen to know somebody, but they had a developer interested. If we pull out of this before the deadline, we do kind of tarnish our reputation, potentially with them for future projects, but it may not be that important, so.
Yeah, and it kind of what, when I had my light on, it was kind of to clarify what Alder Finkler basically just asked is, because I didn't want people to be under the impression that we absolutely have to go to RFP for this to fit ARPA funds. That is my preferred method of going, and that is still what I want to do, and I still think developing it is for the best of our community. But the big thing is we have to make sure that whatever we move forward with does fit ARPA guidelines. That was the original intent of the council, was for it to be developed, which would fit ARPA guidelines. If that is not the will of this council, then you need to at least make sure it fits ARPA guidelines. I am still 100% in that this should be developed. Yes, it doesn't get us to our 3% growth, but it gets us somewhere. It gets us on the right path. It shows developers that we're serious, and it shows people that we want to move forward and we're ready to move forward. It's more than just this. And will the cost of all the utilities and the development equal out to what individual lot prices are, or what the city eventually gets back from it? Almost certainly not. Like, let's not kid ourselves. We are probably gonna lose a couple $100,000 on this initially. That is not the goal. The goal is long-term benefit. Even if it costs the city a little bit of money above and beyond what we recoup from the eventual sale of the housing, the long-term benefit is still far greater than a lavender farm could ever be.
So we've been in discussion on this for a while, and the one thing that I am hearing some commonality on is that we were not opposed as a group to hearing a developers agreement. Is that something that we would be interested as a group in hearing? What Brian and David could come up with?
I think we need to create as much information as possible, not just their developer, I'm sorry.
I think we need to do as much information as possible, not just their developers agreement, but we need to see the other developers' ideas. We look at cost benefits for Alder Finkler. We need to do all of it.
I'm a yes.
I'm a yes for the builder's agreement.
I would say as a council, it's our responsibility to look at every single offer that's available, not just to pick one. So I'm fine with looking at developers' agreements.
If that's the direction council wants to go, I think that's at least healthier than moving forward with this offer to purchase. I personally think that it should be tabled to look at all agreements all potential things until we have multiple options, which would be the end of the RFP process. While this could potentially maybe fit into the guidelines of ARPA if they come up with a good enough developers agreement for us, I don't think we should be just deciding that 5 out of 6 of the members of our previous council wanted this to happen, including yourself, Alder Rolke. You voted for this to move forward at one point in time. I don't think we should just give up on trying to move our city forward. I think we should wait for everything until we have more information from the developers that could potentially help move our city forward, aside from just the lavender farm.
Could we also mention that it's not just a lavender farm? No one's going to be selling.
They have not recognized you.
Okay.
So June 9th is a little more than 30 days away. Could we ask that you come back with a developer's agreement?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Maybe, we'll see, because again, we've got a deadline, they need to find a house. So, I mean, our offer is not gonna sit around forever, we've been here for months now at this point, so I can try, but we can't guarantee.
That's fair. Thank you.
Alder Rolke. Will the city be putting our terms on what we need to meet the ARPA terms, or are we anticipating that they'll decide what the ARPA terms are in their agreement, or?
I would like us to.
Okay, so I think we'd probably sit down maybe with staff and the realtor, maybe at, on Friday at DT, potentially. If that works out, to try to hammer out some initial terms, if that's the consensus. I'm not sure exactly what consensus is right now.
Alder Rolke, we definitely need to ensure that we have the right terms in place and make sure that there's a clear understanding of ARPA. It's a very complicated grant, I've attended 3 seminars on it. We've got legal opinions. It's not something that we should leave to just anyone.
If they could work with staff, I think so staff can kind of match the terms up and see what their thoughts are on it. The staff are probably wondering what else if there's other things, or are we just working on this, or are there other things we're supposed to be working on? Because there was a couple different thoughts. So I guess what's the final consensus?
Then somebody needs to make a motion, yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we take a vote. The vote is to clarify if we are just moving forward with one developer's agreement, or correct?
Make a motion for what you want to do.
Right.
So
Okay,
do you
here's
want
what
to
I want to do.
Make a motion and then make it.
I am going to make a motion then that we do accept a developer's agreement with them, but we wait till we have all of the developers' agreements in place and review them all together, because you can't compare apples to apples without having everything in front of you.
So are you making a motion to wait for the RFP process?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
So we have a,
I can second that.
okay, we have a motion and a second to wait for the RFP process. Would this be something that we can do a voice vote for?
Either way, probably easier for a roll call.
Okay, then we'll do a roll call.
Hammer,
I with reservations.
pardon?
So, and I.
Oh, okay.
With reservations.
Okay. Gray,
Aye.
Motive,
Aye.
Reed. Rolke.
Aye.
Steiner,
Aye.
Finkler.
Nay.
5-2.
So then moving on, the next item on the agenda is discuss accepting donations for pickleball court. And, all right. Always in the top. Mayor.
He always
Yeah.
wants now.
Yeah.
Hello. Are there any questions? The Recreation Department, we were fortunate enough to have somebody offer a $10,000 donation to go towards the pickleball courts. And I'd like to have council blessing to move forward with that.
Okay, something we can agree quickly
That
on.
was easy. Yay, they can agree on that. Yeah, awesome, thank you.
Okay, and then are you?
I would like to recognize, normally this gentleman and his wife like to remain anonymous, but he did say that I could say Bob and Janet Grow, and thank them for their, this opportunity to go towards our pickleball court. So, thank you to them.
And then are you the next?
So,
item as well?
we're going to talk about that a little bit here moving forward. So originally, when it started becoming popular in Columbus, there was a handful of people that had interest in pickleball. And we were looking at putting in just 2 courts, but now it's like 47 people are meeting 3 times a week at the school and outside. So now we're looking at 4 courts, and I have 2 quotes back. I need a third, and it's going to be about $150,000, but that's installation of the courts, the fencing, the ballast, and everything around it, the acrylic paint, about $150,000. And then the basketball court's about $22,000. So in total, about we'll say $175,000 for the installation of everything. But this is really hitting the ground running, and I'd like to thank these people over here. So that's moving into the next item, but I'll step back, and then I'll come forward.
Any questions or
Yes,
guys?
different questions.
So once we eventually get the pickleball courts, is this something that will be similar to like the softball and like baseball agreements? Like, will
I
there be-
I think they're just gonna be a group that just operates on their own, just like it's a park amenity, and they'll just go out to the tennis courts and work on their own. I don't have any plans of having a pickleball club at this time, but
It just sounds
I
like
just
it
think the courts
might
are
be-
out there and possibly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Otherwise, moving right along to discussing paint for the pickleball courts?
Yes, so because there is such a need, Kyle had actually asked the question last year if we could just paint the tennis courts, and there wasn't a big need for it at that time, but now there's so many people, they're utilizing the gyms 3 days a week, and now that it's nicer, they like to be able to use those tennis courts as well. The only problem is, well, we could paint it, it's very inexpensive, but the nets aren't set where they need to be. I am not an expert by any means, so I've asked some people that are experts to kind of explain a little bit about it. So, you guys want to come up? Christy, come on!
Expert might be a
This
little
is,
off.
yeah, no, a little bit more than me. This is Christy Loebner. I'll let her explain a little bit, and Annie Beddington and her husband.
Right.
Christy's husband, Eric. Come
I'm
on up,
Christy
Eric.
Loebner. I am one of the original small group that wanted lines last year, and there wasn't much of a need. But we do have a bigger need. We're growing. We have had people finding us in all kinds of ways, seeking us out. People from other communities, but people from Columbus that have heard that we exist, trying to find out when we're playing, where we're playing, and we're growing fast. And we have age range that goes all the way from 16 years old to, I've never asked their age, but I'm guessing about,
74.
I'm guessing close to 70. Yeah, right. We have grandparents playing with their grandkids, and it's really fun. So I invite you to come and play if you're interested. We play on Wednesday nights from 6 until 8 at the elementary school, and we play on Saturday and Sunday mornings from 9 until 11. And we're hopeful to get outside again at the tennis courts. Last year, we did imaginary lines. That would have been out, that would have been in, some debate about what was happening, but we really need the lines so that we can continue to grow and play our sport.
We currently tape down lines.
Each time.
Which takes time, and then when we're done, we have to pull the tape up. And
The school's been really great in partnering with us. We put lines down with some permanent indoor tape that we've left up, which is, like, it was a huge change for us to be able to go in, put up our nets, play. Right now, we just have portable nets that we put up inside. And it does make a big difference in having those lines already down versus the time that it takes us to put them up. And quite frankly, the lines that we're using, right now, they're taped and it's great. Previously, they were temporary lines, and sometimes their feet get caught on them, and it's just not a great scenario. So we're asking for your support to get the painted lines so that at least this summer we can do that. And then also your support with our fundraising. We have partnered with Amy to try to help us get some permanent courts here in town. So
Alder Roque, can I?
Certainly.
I just want to make a comment. I think it's really exciting. I would love to learn at some point, but if you do this and you do a startup leagues like you do, will you please include what we used to call in volleyball a drinking league or a beginning league, so that we're not too embarrassed?
Right. Right. We have enough equipment for you to come and try it without having your own paddle, and so we've welcomed people in, and that's a lot of times how people start. There have been a few of us that have went out for a beer at Kurth on Wednesday nights after we're done. So, and at the tennis courts, there's the country club close by, so we could make it definitely a social club. But we invite everybody, it's an inclusive group, and anybody, it's really a great sport. If you haven't been introduced to it, you should come and see what we're about.
We have a number of deaf or hard of hearing members, so we're all learning ASL as we're playing, and kids, adults, old folks, everybody.
Right. We have a Facebook group that, it's a closed group to be invited in, but we don't really decline anybody. We keep it closed because you guys have seen on Facebook what happens. But the Columbus Pickleball Club, and so it's a way for us just to communicate when we're playing, if there's any change in the schedule.
It's good to know.
The purpose of that is, but we're trying to grow, and we want to get bigger, and we want to. Our communities around us, they all have pickleball courts. We're behind on that too, and we want to be able to play here. So
And this group is willing to do the work. We're just gonna supply the paint and the tape and.
Right.
We'll all work
Yep.
together and get it done.
Yep, yep.
So just a question for clarification, because I'm not very familiar with the sport. I did hear you say, Amy Jo, that at the tennis courts, that the nets are in the wrong place. We're just talking about permanent paint, not like
Correct.
altering the
It's
nets
a
or
permanent
anything?
paint.
For-
The
okay.
net, they'll be playing with the nets at the regular height that a tennis
it.
player would play at.
Okay.
Right.
I believe pickleball drops a little bit in the center.
Correct.
And we just won't have that.
Right.
Okay.
It's a,
On the tennis courts.
it's a get us by until we get our permanent courts that we're trying to fundraise for.
Sure.
They are just a little bit higher, but you can play that way. The bigger deal is where the lines are right now. It's hard to play without the lines.
You can purchase nets that do drop down, you ratchet them down.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something in the future that we could do that would allow us to have
Right.
more
Maybe we have
courts.
to replace a net in the future.
Yeah, Waterloo
Correct.
has adjustable
Yeah.
nets. Yeah.
Right,
So,
right. Yep. Any other questions?
Other questions? Are we all okay moving this forward? Great.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Next on the agenda is review alcohol license renewals for 23-24 licensing period. And do have a couple notes here. The inspections are ongoing. Tea Time Wine and Bakery have delinquent personal property tax, and Columbus Country Club have outstanding rent due to the city from 2022.
Can you say those again? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I speak too fast? I speak too fast sometimes. The note is that the inspections are ongoing. Tea Time Wine and Bakery have delinquent personal property tax in the amount of $86.55, and Columbus Country Club have outstanding rent due to the city from 2022 in the amount of $4,800. We can move these forward with notice that these things need to be taken care of, if that's the will of the council, or is there an alternate suggestion? Alder Gray?
So in the past, when there were things delinquent, we would, if we move forward, we would have like an agreement with them. Pat, have you reached out, or do we have anything set up? Like,
I do.
so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think if it's delinquent, then anything delinquent, we need some sort of agreement that it's going to get paid. I mean, $86 is incredibly minor.
But still.
Yeah, I think just because that's what we've done with other people in the past, I think we need something showing that it's gonna get paid before we move it forward, even though it's really small.
I would agree to that. I would say we can move it forward with the provision that by the time we come to next council, they have these funds paid. Otherwise, they're held until they are. And because, they've been around for a while, there are not too many issues that we're going to have, but accountability needs to be accountability, so.
The country club is that's a lot of money.
Is that Alder Reed? Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just wondering, do we know if the rent has been paid for this year so far for the country club? Just,
I understand that it's been invoiced. I don't know that it's been paid for this year yet.
So they get the invoice in the beginning of the year, is it? Is that how that works, or? Okay, all right.
Are we all comfortable with Alder Steiner's suggestion to move this forward with the understanding that these are taken care of by the time we come to the vote? Alder Gray?
I think we just need to make sure staff has good enough direction of how to reach out and what we would be comfortable moving forward with. I think tea time, it's simple, like it's probably more of a mistake than anything since it's $86. But the Columbus Country Club, I think in order for that one to move forward, we need some sort of agreement with them. If they can't pay it all in full, would the council be willing to continue and move forward even at the regular meeting if we have like an agreement to help them catch up on back rent? Or like that's kind of where I'm getting at, is $5,000, they might not be able to pay it in full.
Especially this time of year.
Yeah, so like, are we comfortable doing like a like some sort of agreement, they pay X amount on top of the regular rent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, as long as it's addressed. Yep.
So, and then I think the other thing is how much is that and what do we, like, staff needs to know what the direction is. So like, how much per month do we want them to pay at a minimum to get this back?
I personally think that you need to reach out to them and see what they can afford to do, and then bring us back an idea when we reconvene on this.
Are we
I agree
going
with that.
forward
Oh, sorry.
both last year and this year, or just last year to cover that cost? Is the question that I would have with that, is because that's 2 years' worth of rent that we're holding out on.
So the 2023 rent won't be delinquent until after the license is issued. So it's kind of invoiced around this time of year, but it's not really delinquent until after the license is issued. But because there is a delinquency from the previous year, we could treat them specially, and if we come up to a payment arrangement, we could wrap both into one and try to get payments on both. But I think it's probably wise to kind of see where they're at, especially early in the season, and see what they would propose on getting back on track.
I would just suggest that because we don't want to come back to this again every year if they're having problems in the beginning of the season to keep that rent going, and have this every time a license renewal comes up, that we got to make another payment plan if we just put them on one for future reference.
Is there a way to adjust the due dates for them if this is just a bad season for them?
Yeah, I don't remember this being an issue with
This has
them in the
not been an
past.
issue before.
Yeah, this is a pretty new thing. So, like, I think it is a good idea for staff to reach out and figure out what we could do.
Attorney Johnson?
Just a word of caution, if you approve the license with a payment plan and then they get a couple months, like into July or August, and default on the payment plan, you're going to have to go through the revocation process to take their license away if that's your remedy of choice. So the payment plan, I have no objections, but the payment plan carries some risk with it. Payment in full before you grant the license would be far superior.
There are also lease terms. So we, as the landlord, would have actually probably more authority if they're behind in their lease payments to do more than pull the liquor license. So, I mean, we have several hammers and a mayor hammer.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm personally, I'm not super afraid of allowing for a payment plan if that's what they need. I mean, hopefully it's something that they could just pay in full and we move on, but if it's not, I think allowing for a payment plan is good. It's not out of the question. Like, we've done it, the utilities have done it before with people that have been in the rear for utilities. Like, it's especially, like, I think, for me personally, if it's a payment plan, I'm not really that concerned if they default on it that we have to revoke their license, or, you know.
We just pray for a wonderful golfing season.
Exactly. Everybody needs to go to the country club and support the country club so they can pay their bills.
The Farmer's Almanac says it's going to be a very hot summer this summer. I don't remember this being an issue last year, but I don't have any visibility prior to that. Was it ever before?
I've never seen it.
They did have a rough season.
5 years
I
ago?
do know that, and
Yeah, maybe.
Dave let me, my son works there, so when I went in to see him, he had mentioned they were having some difficulties, but I don't think it's that bad, and I think that staff could easily work with them on a payment plan.
And just one final comment, excuse me.
Oh, no problem.
Just today, I received a last-minute information on a bill for the Columbus Lanes, or the bowling alley. So we're in the process of looking into reviewing what that is and the information on that, so that would be coming forward the next time, just so you're aware of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I do remember them having a problem maybe 5 years ago, but they were able to, pay it eventually. Because their business is so seasonal, I really don't have any problem with them not being paid in full to issue the license. I don't want to prevent them from being able to meet their financial obligations. So, yeah, as long as we have an agreement, I'm fine.
Are there any, like, parameters that we should set up, though, like an agreement that it's paid in full by the end of 2013, or like, is there?
2023 is preferable.
Only a decade off by 2023. Like, I mean, what's the,
I would like both rents paid off by the end of 2023.
Okay.
yeah, okay. I'm all for that. I just thought we should have some sort of parameters for
Yeah.
staff to work with.
Right.
Kyle, is that enough for you to go on? Okay. So we're good moving the liquor license renewals forward with those provisos? Okay. And the tobacco license applications, which is listed separately. And, give me a moment. I did not, there we go. Okay, I did not see any issues with any of those. Alders, Gray, and Motif, did you have things that you wanted, your lights are still on, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is everybody comfortable moving these forward? Okay. And then next on the agenda is discussing the Capital Streets Plan.
All right, I'll get this started, and then Jason might have a couple comments to add. We saw a draft of this a while back when we looked at the stormwater plan. This was a component of it in a little bit rougher draft, and we did some tweaks to it. There is one error still on this. We originally had Tower Drive in 2026 for $200,000. We clarified the let date. It is $200,000 in 2025. So in the spreadsheet for budget year 2025, it shows $200,000 in both 25 and 26. Jason assured me if we leave the $200,000 there, he'll spend it on a road somewhere, and they could use it. So, but that was an error. So that one would go in 2025, not 26. So essentially, this is about $10 million worth of work over the next 10 years. And this is off of the list that's on the final page, which has about $17 million worth of work on it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of good work to be done on this list, and we didn't take nearly as much off as Jason would want or I would want. So the good part is that it's a plan. It gets some big projects off the list in the next 10 years. It gives the utilities something that they can look at if we can stick to this, and they can start planning their budgets out as well to say, you know, this is what the utility projects will be doing as we do the full reconstructions. The changes from the earlier version, we moved a couple projects up to 2024. And that would be the Commercial Drive Mill and Overlay, and then the Selden and Richmond area. I believe that's a reconstruction. The Commercial Drive Mill and Overlay is kind of one that is not a residential area, and we haven't done a lot of non-residential mill and overlays recently. So this is kind of a nice area to do that in. There's a lot of commercial activity, and the semis have kind of beat that area up. And I know that we've gotten a couple calls from several of the employers out there just kind of asking us to fix the potholes because the semis are falling into the holes. So I think it's a good gesture to show that we are paying attention to all the different areas, and you know, everyone's paying taxes, and those are major employers. So I think that's a good show. We also have then in 2025 we have Tower Drive, which is a state project, State Highway 73 Mill and Overlay, which is a state project, and then also at that same time we're planning on doing Dickinson Boulevard from Fuller to James. The reason we're putting that at the same time is we think with that mill and overlay, we might get the State Highway 73 state crew to want to bid on that as well while they have the equipment here in town, so we might get a favorable bid on that. 2026 is kind of the big project year with School Street. That's going to be a huge project for the utilities and the streets. And Jason's kind of noted that you can never plan these far enough in advance. People are always saying, you know, we didn't know far enough in advance, or it kind of snuck up on us. So if we commit to this, not that it's not changeable, but this does give several years for us to really start planning, start notifying people that this is coming up, and to really have some good public information meetings, hopefully get out some good bids early in the year, lock in some good prices. And so hopefully that will be something that we can rely on in the future and get the most out of our bidding. As we look at the further out we get, there's a lot of assumptions in here. We used 3 3/4 for the bond rate. I think we can still do better than that. We also didn't include any LRIP funding or any kind of grant funding that we might be awarded. So if we get those, that will make the funding better, either reducing your debt load or hopefully bringing more projects on board. Another project that is in the Tax Increment District 6 plan, but isn't on this list yet because we're not really certain when it will go, is the reconstruction, I think, of Dickinson Boulevard on this side of James Street. That's going to be a little bit dependent on the fund balance in the TIF district. I think as the TIF sort of develops and gets a little bit more momentum behind it, and you get an idea of when the fund balance is going to be adequate to do the project, you'll have a better idea of, is that in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? And there'll be a lot of considerations about what do you do with the parking? What do you do with the sidewalks? So it's going to be, probably some planning involved in that and what it means for this section of the downtown in the TIF district. This is kind of the starting point and a conversation starter. And I don't know if Jason had any more he wanted to add to that.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Amy. Kyle did a great job of summarizing this. We spent some time really trying to think about strategically how we match projects up and where we slate them. Just a couple things I wanted to pass out since I've been around long enough and kind of been part of this historic program. Just a couple things to note. One, this does not include any of the street maintenance or county aid money that we do get through the county. That's budgeted every year out of the operating budget. Obviously, this is capital, but there obviously are funds going towards maintaining our roads so they don't fall into disrepair. Kyle did mention that we talked a lot in length about grants, and I think we've been pretty successful over the last 10 years about getting road money. I mean, Hibbert Street was $500,000. Tower Drive's about $800,000. So we're able to get those grants, and they do come available. Now, you're not going to get one every year, but every 3 to 5 years, you can count on a fairly sizable chunk of money coming through some programs. So, those programs change with the state funding and things like that. So we are thinking that this is conservative or worst case scenario as far as the borrowing is concerned. The stormwater costs are built into here for the pipes and the inlets and stuff because we don't have a separate way to fund that. So that is in the borrowing capital plan. So I just want to note that. Now, if there would be a day that would come where there would be a separate funding source for stormwater, obviously that would take some burden off of this plan as well. And, that's, it's not a small number when you start adding up all the stormwater costs, as you know. And then as far as the utilities, I just thought it was important to note, I have kind of a quick rule of thumb, and Kyle and I talked about this a little bit when we were doing this too. The cost ratio between what you see here for the streets and storm sewer versus the water and sewer is about a 60-40 on average. Now that can vary because it's very specific to each street. So if you look at this as being 60% of the cost, you have that other 40% sitting there that the utilities have to borrow too. Obviously, those are revenue funds. That's a little different, but that does come into the planning side of it and just making sure that there's kind of a sister component to this to consider that does have some sizable costs associated with that as well. So, it's money into infrastructure into the city, not just, looking exclusively at the road repairs. The only other thing I just wanted to point out, and I feel really good about this recommendation, bringing it forward from this standpoint. So if I go back and look at the last 13 years, and we keep track of this, I have a nice little graph with everything in it. Out of those last 13 years, only there's 7 of those, or about 50% of those years where there was actually a capital street project done in the city. Many reasons why, borrowing, different reasons, planning. But there was only 7, and on average, and again, if we're using the same apples comparison for the storm and the street costs in the operating or in the capital budget here, we spend on average about $330,000 a year. I just ran the math here. I had a little time earlier, and this plan works out to about $881,000 a year as it's proposed. So it is a significant increase looking forward as to an investment in your city. Back in 2013, we had a streets plan where we recommended to make any progress in the city. Back then, 10 years ago, we recommended $500,000 a year, and the city was able to put forth that $300,000 level. I feel like we've made some progress, but I don't know that we made what we wanted to. This plan puts forth maybe a much more ambitious goal, but I think it kind of gets you back on track of focusing that towards it. So through, thanks to Kyle and sitting down and kind of working through this plan, from an engineering standpoint, I really support this plan because I think this type of a plan will definitely make a sizable difference. I mean, you're more than doubling your effort towards the streets than has been historically. So any questions from me? Thank you.
No, I think this is excellent, and I'm very appreciative of everyone's work that went into it. Of course, Jason had a lot to do with it, but I would like to call out our administrator for really spearheading this. This wasn't something that has been done prior to our previous council and our current administrator. And the amount of progress that we can make when we have a real plan in place is huge. My only thing is I would also like to see something similar to this for stormwater, regardless of how we're paying for it, just so that we have more of a, I think that'll help for future referendum, for everything. I think if we can create a plan similar to this for stormwater, that would be beneficial.
We kind of had one, didn't we?
Yeah, but something more clear that, this year we're going to spend, it'll cost this amount of money, this year it'll cost this amount of money, these are the projects that we're doing, and.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, I know we had a start to that, so it
Yeah.
shouldn't be hard to finish up terribly.
Right, I agree.
I didn't mean to diminish that, sorry.
I think we are on the right track there. I just don't want us to lose focus and stop moving in that direction, because I think that's a direction that we were going, but it's a direction that can easily be lost. Like Alder Reed and I have been in council long enough to know that you can easily lose direction and not get things done that you once were very for getting done. And that's happened many times. So I just want to remind us that stormwater would be this would be a big benefit if we had something this clear for stormwater as well.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to say how delighted I am to see a 9-year roads plan. This is simply unheard of for us. In a previous council life, every year it might be the council debating for 5 to 10 hours, looking over all of the available streets each year and trying to decide what was the biggest priority. So to have a vision in place is fantastic. I mean, I know that weather changes, streets can crack in unexpected ways, but to just have a guide map, thank you.
So in regards to the stormwater, I can do something like that for stormwater. This is going to sound like splitting hairs. The street plan is a full plan. This is tied out, in addition to the equipment, to the borrowing and to the budget, the anticipated budget, like as we kind of planned out our borrowing and funding for the capital plan and things like that. So this is actually a planned, funded plan. And that's what I call a complete plan. The stormwater plan, we can put a bunch of things on paper, and we'll have the ideas of what years and how much it'll be, but until we tie it to funding, it's not really a plan. And that's why you get lists of stuff that never get done. And until we lock in that funding, it's going to be a list of stuff that we don't have money to do. But things change. There's news coming out today of a new funding source that's going to be coming out. We're still learning the details, and it's going to help. It's not going to solve everything. But, as those things happen, I think if we have the stormwater plan, you might be able to start putting some money towards it. So I do think there's a worthwhile exercise, but this one is kind of fully ready to be merged with the equipment in a full plan, so.
Alder Gray?
So I think and I agree with you, for a fully plan, it has to be funded. I think one of the important things when you, especially in staff, Jason and everyone is putting together the stormwater plan, is that it needs to be a full plan and it needs to be funded in multiple ways. So I think we need kind of like funding from column A, funding from column B, funding from column C. So basically, like, these are the projects that we are committing to doing for the next 10 years. This is the cost. This is what it will cost taxpayers if it is simply funded through the levy, and we max out our spending, we max out our borrowing, we do everything we can. This is what it's going to cost, and that's the worst case scenario. Hopefully that's not what we end up having to do. Or this is what it is if we have a successful referendum and we have a funded stormwater utility, or, I think that will help for the referendum and for people to understand what the real cost is, because I think part of the problem with the city not doing things in the past for stormwater is there's this idea that the city just isn't spending the money appropriately, or we're not budgeting appropriately, or that we have all these funds that we should be fixing stormwater and we're just not doing it right. We're somehow dropping the ball. So I think if we have the plan set out and we have it showing that, yes, this is what the taxes will be, this is what our borrowing will be, this is how much debt we're going to be in, and this is what it is. But have a committed plan of what we're going to do every year, and hopefully that's not the way we end up having to pay for it. But one way or the other, it has to happen. Just like streets or stormwater, we can't just pretend it doesn't exist and not do it. It has to happen somehow. So I think just make the plan and budget for it, and hopefully we get a better way to pay for it before we actually start paying for it.
And I agree with you on having that stormwater plan, because if you want to get that referendum through, that's what the people have been asking for, is they want a plan. They want to know the project, they want to know the cost, and they want to know, what you're looking at for a year or whatever. So I think that's, if we're looking at going forward to trying to get the referendum for a stormwater utility, you almost need that. And that's what I've heard from constituents, so.
I, of all people, completely support stormwater. It's been, I worked hand in hand with Jason Letha in trying to get the last referendum passed, but this is completely off topic.
Yeah, sorry.
And I would like to ask that you place it on the next agenda for us to dig into it more.
Purchase of public properties, the investment of public funds, or conducting other public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically 1149 West James Street. Can I have a motion?
Alder Motif will make a motion to convene to close session per 19.851E.
And do I have a second?
Alder Finkler will second.
Okay. And Pat, could you take a roll call vote, please?
Gray?
Aye.
Motif?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Rolke?
Aye.
Steiner?
Aye.
Finkler?
Aye.
Hammer?
Aye.
Motion carries.
We will not be returning to air tonight. Everybody have a nice evening.